Hi, this is Tom Soane and welcome to the Anonymous Landlord. Now, if you are thinking about buying an investment property at any point in the near future, there are certain things that you must do before you even book a viewing. Information you must find out. Also some due diligence that you must do. And if you don't do those things, you're not going to get the best property deal. So those things before the viewing are vital, before you even book a viewing. Then, when you're at the property, at the viewing, there are things you must check for. Vital things that will be the difference between a good property investment and a disaster. And then after that viewing, if you want to buy the property, there are certain things that you need to do to make sure you're going to get that property at the price that you want it, but also to make sure that you're going to get the property completed in the smoothest, fastest possible way. And as a bonus, I'm going to tell you how you can maximize your estate agent, how you can get the most out of them. Because believe it or not, you're not their customer. So they actually work for the seller, but you need them to work for you. How are you going to do that? By not even paying them, because you don't. Buyers don't pay the agents. So all of those things, I'm going to talk through those step by step before the viewing, during the viewing, after the viewing, and how to get the most out of the agent. So let's kick off with everything you need to do, and please don't miss any of these things. Everything you need to do before the viewing. And this is before you've even booked a viewing on any property. So let's get started by assuming that you found a property on Rightmove, you've scrolled through and you found a 2-bedroom house that on the face of it, you like the look of. Seems like a decent investment for you. The first thing we need to do is the obvious bit. We need to work out the true value of that property. Now, notice I said true value. That's a very common mistake. I see so many people that want to invest in property, just have a look at all the properties that are on the market, and subconsciously you assume that because those 10 properties are on the market for between 190 and 200, then yours is going to be roughly worth that. Well, it's not. I promise you. On the market price is not the same as the sale completed price. That's the key point to remember there. I will come back to on the market price actually, because that is also important. But we need to know what the sold completed prices are. 2 reasons. Number 1, because your property is only going to be worth what someone's prepared to pay for it. And the sold completed prices is actual evidence of what people are prepared to pay for the property. Secondly, the chances are someone's going to buy that property from you or something like that in the future. If you're going to resell, that is, someone's going to buy the property with a mortgage. So you need to know what the mortgage value of the property is, because a surveyor will only look at actual evidence of sold completed prices. Also, on that same point, your mortgage lender, if you're buying the property with a mortgage or bridging loan, which I'll explain in a sec, but if you're buying the property with a mortgage or bridging loan, then your lender will be looking at the sold completed prices, not the properties on the market. So that's really important to remember, and it's a mistake I see very, very often. So now we know what the completed sale value of those properties are, you can very easily see what yours is going to be worth. Now we can have a look at the sale agreed prices. Now this is a bit finger in the air guesswork, but it's educated, evidence-based guessing. And I like that. If you go on Rightmove, search all the properties, 2-bedroom houses in the local area, and then go into the filters and select include sold properties, that will show you all of the properties that are on the market and all the properties that are sale agreed. Sale agreed is different to sale completed, by the way. Now, you can see from the sold properties, the ones that have actually sold, and you can see what the price is they were advertised at, and that will give you an idea of how much demand there is, what the popularity of the certain price points are. And to put that into an example, if you've got 20 properties on the market between 190 and 190 and 200,000, all 2-bedroom houses, and there's 20 on the market, 10 of them are sale agreed, but you can notice that all of the sale agreed ones were at 192, 193, 194, 195, but all the ones on the market are 196, 197, 198, 199. Now you know that 2-bedroom properties in that area are more popular if they're below 195. So for me, I would calculate the sale agreeds at the 195 area, and that gives you more of a link to the completed sale prices. So if the average completed sale price is 190, but the sale agreed prices is 195, then that will show you that prices might be slightly increasing over that time. So you might be able to get to 195. So that'll give you a good idea there. But you do also need to know what properties are on the market, because that will tell you where your property is positioned in the market. But it also tells you the demand. If you've got 20 properties on the market, 2-bedroom houses in your area, but only 5 of them are sale agreed, then that means there's low demand for that property. If it's the other way around and there's 15 that are sale agreed and only 5 on the market, that means there's high demand. And anything else is anything else. You get what I'm going with that, where I'm going with that. So now we know the position of your property, the demand for your property, the sold prices, sold completed prices, and the sale agreed prices. You can work out what the true value of your property is. Now, we're probably going to be looking at the job done value, because if you're buying a property that needs a full refurbishment, then that's going to be a different value to once the property is fully refurbished, right? Makes sense? And there's a way to calculate that too. So we'll do that at the viewing. Don't worry about that. We'll do it. Now you need to speak to the agent and find out their advice about what work they think needs to be done to get this up to top value. Now, of course, they're going to say things like, oh, kitchen, bathroom, carpets, painting, whatever. But we need to get a bit more info from them, because if they're going to, if they think they're going to sell the property, right? And this doesn't matter if you're selling it or not. If they think you're going to sell the property, they're more likely to give you some actual information from their perspective and experience about what you need to do to get really good value from that property. You can also ask them for the resale value in their opinion. You can ask them for the rental value in their opinion, and you can ask them for their demand. Now, here's a quick warning. If an estate agent gets a whiff of business from you that they think they might be able to win your listing in the future, they're going to either give you evidence-based opinion and evidence-based information and their opinions, or they're going to give you a ton of bullshit because they just want to win your listing. They're going to tell you it's worth 225 grand when you know it's definitely no more than 200, just because money blinds people. People think that, oh, an extra 25 grand, oh my God, I'm so lucky. So be wary of the 50% of estate agents out there that are full of crap and are more interested in getting a property on the market than they are in actually selling it. I've never understood that. But hey, that's the way it is. My agency are 100% driven to selling, not getting properties on the market. We actually turn down properties if the owner wants too much money. Why would we? No, we're not going to sell your property at 50 grand more than it's worth, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, because otherwise we're not going to get any money we're not going to get paid. Now you need to work out what the bridging loan costs or buy-to-let mortgage costs are. Because if you're buying this with a mortgage, that means the property is habitable. If the property is not habitable, then you need to buy it with a bridging loan. And a bridging loan is quite simply what it sounds like. It's a loan that enables you to buy the property until the property is habitable. So you buy it with a bridging loan, you do the work, then it's habitable, then you can take a mortgage. Now, I'll go into much more detail about the technicals of bridging loan finance, buy-to-let mortgages, all of that, and how all of that works in depth in a whole nother thing. But right now, we're just talking about things you've got to check. By the way, if you go onto my Facebook page, then there is actually a video on there about bridging loans. So check on that. Anyway, a quick calculation that you need to make on the rent is by calculating the same thing that the mortgage lender is going to calculate if you're buying it with a mortgage or a bridging loan. The rent must be at least 125% of the mortgage payment if the interest-only rate is 5.5%. Let me explain that again. The rent on the property that you're buying must be at least 125% of the mortgage payment at 5.5%. So how do you work that out? If you're borrowing 100 grand, 5.5% of 100 grand is £5,500. Divided by 12 to get you your monthly rent of about 480, something like that, 475. The rent must be 125% of that figure. That's how the mortgage lender will calculate it to decide whether they're going to lend you that amount or less. So really, all of those pieces of information go towards creating the true yield, which you need to calculate before you even go and view a property. Calculate the true yield. Now, again, I'm not going to go into true yield right now because that's a whole different subject that I've already done in another video, and I have got a podcast on true yield because it's a big mistake that people make so many times. I even call it fake yield now because it's a mistake that can be quite serious. You need to work out the true yield, and all of those pieces of information will go towards giving you that true yield, right? So let's say the boxes have been ticked and the property does generate the correct true yield for you as a property investor. So there you go, all your boxes are ticked. You've booked a viewing, job done. Now, there are certain things that you must check at the property viewing in order to work out if this is going to be a good investment or not. And there are some things that a lot of people miss that I'm going to go through with you. Now, I have done again, and so I'm not plugging other episodes here, but I don't want this episode to turn into a big 2-hour episode because there's so much information, as I'm sure you'll appreciate. So during the viewing, I have actually got a checklist that I've put into a podcast and a video, a very detailed checklist of everything you need to check. But here are the main highlights. First of all, look, you can find out a lot of this stuff from the agent, but also you can find out just by looking yourself. But have a look at the boiler. Now, here's a tip. If the average life of a boiler is 10 to 15 years, right? Which means if it's more than 10 years old, the chances are you're going to have to replace that boiler in the next few years. If that boiler has been serviced every year regularly like clockwork, you might get an extra few years out of that boiler. Sometimes you can push it up to 20. But notice I'm saying sometimes. It is a risk you will have to incorporate into your calculations. You have to acknowledge that you're probably going to have to replace that boiler at some point in the near future. If you assume that boiler is going to cost you 1,500 quid installed, then at least you know. But you can take that out of the rent, you can pay for it monthly, you can do all of those things. It's a whole different calculation. Next thing is double glazed windows. Now, the life expectancy of a double glazed window is about 20 years, give or take. And once you start getting towards that 20-year lifespan of windows, then that's when they can start blowing very easily. You know, when you see inside, you see loads of water, condensation. That means the window has blown, meaning it's less efficient. The panes need replacing. You can actually get companies that will go in and remove condensation from inside the windows. But that is a cost, again, that you'll have to take into account. Older windows like that are more susceptible to blowing. So you'll need to calculate that at some point over the next 10 years, you're probably going to need to replace the windows. You can do it gradually, step by step. You can do it as they go wrong if you want. But a quick check for you that I always find quite useful is go and feel the black rubber seal around the older windows. Now, if they feel quite rubbery and quite normal, then cool, they might last you a bit longer. But if they feel dry and crumbly, that probably means that they're letting certain moisture and condensation into that window. So those are the ones that will need replacing. But also while you're there, just check the handles. And here's a little tip. If the handles are damaged or broken, on older windows, they might not make handles that fit your windows. So just remember those little tiny tips. Now check the electrics. First of all, go and check the fuse box, which is the sort of big fuse thing. It's about that big. And if it looks old, it is old. I know that sounds really silly, but and it's difficult to describe on a podcast. But if you have a look at the fuse box, and you see those big blocks of ceramic style or plastic fuse boxes that are plugged into the fuse box, then that's an old style fuse box which will need replacing. It's now illegal to rent out properties with that style of fuse box. Now, it's not the biggest cost in the world, but it is a cost, and you'll have to get that. You'll have to include that in your calculation. But also the wiring. And actually, a new style, before I go into the wiring, the new style fuse boxes are the ones with the switches, the little plastic switches that just make life a whole lot easier. For when a fuse goes or something like that, it just flicks the switch, which is awesome, much better. Anyway, wiring. You might need to rewire an older property. If the property hasn't been rewired in the last, say, 25 years, the chances are it's old style wiring which will need to be replaced and rewired throughout the house. Again, it's not the biggest problem in the world. It's actually not a problem. It can be done. It's just a cost. So a quick way to check on that, by the way, is that old wiring is the red, black, and green wires, if you remember, and the new wiring is blue, brown, and a stripy green and yellow. So remember that on the electrics. If it's not been rewired in the last 25 years or so, the chances are it's probably the old style wiring. It will need to be redone. Now, with property, apart from things like earthquakes and tsunamis and all things like that, one of the most damaging things to a property is water. If water is able to get into the building, it will cause problems like damp and, anyway, it causes all sorts of problems. So those are the things that you need to check for. So how do you check for water ingress, it's called, or places where water can get into a property? Very easy. And the most basics of it is damp. Now, you all know what damp is. There's a big difference between damp and condensation. It's quite often confused, but maybe the most obvious sign between the two is that damp tends to be concentrated in corners and the bottoms of walls, and it rises like that, whereas condensation tends to be across the whole ceiling, the whole wall. Condensation is moisture inside the property that's reacting with the air, sticking to the walls and then going mouldy, whereas damp is water coming into the cavity of the wall, soaking into the bricks, into your plasterboards and all of that sort of stuff, and then it turns mouldy, and then it actually makes the actual wall mouldy. So, a couple of ways to test for that. First of all, look, if you've got bay windows in the property, go and run your hand along the bottom of the bay window and around the bay window. If it feels cold and moist and slightly damp, definite damp. There's mold in the corners of the walls and rising up from the skirting boards, definitely damp. Skirting boards coming away from the walls is a sign of damp too. And things like the smell. You know, when you walk into a property and you smell a really musty smell. Oh, it smells like damp. I can't really describe it any other way. It smells like damp. But also stains. If you see any areas where there have been stains, you can sometimes see where it's been scrubbed off the walls. Again, signs of damp. But if there's wallpaper in the property, here's a key test for you. Push your hand up and against that wallpaper and feel for any crunchiness. If you can hear crunching, then the chances are there is damp in there and or the plaster board will need replacing, or the wall will need replastering underneath. It just means that it's gone a bit dodgy and might need sorting out if you do pull that wallpaper off. But also check for any sort of white chalky residue on the wallpaper, because that will mean that the plaster underneath has got damp, and that the powder is coming through the wallpaper, and you can see it, you can feel it, you can see it on your hands. But also check the brickwork. If you can see any bulging or any areas that just don't look flat and straight, then the chances are you might need to look at the wall ties and look up that on a whole different thing. I'm not going to go into construction techniques here or anything like that. But look at the mortar in between the bricks as well. Just check it's all looking okay, because water can get in through any big holes and cracks and stuff. So just make sure that's okay. And then once you're outside the property, you're checking for water ingress or any opportunity for water to get into the property. So have a look at the guttering. Sometimes you get blockages and other times you just get really dodgy guttering. It's going to fill up quickly and tip water over the wall into the cavity if there's not the right protection. LED flashing, you know, that sort of LED looking stuff that goes around chimneys and around roof felt and all of those things that keep the water out. You can see those from the outside. Roof tiles as well. If they look dodgy, they are dodgy. Okay, so you've checked for all of those things. I'm not going into things like room sizes and things like that. I'm assuming that you know what you're talking about to see if room sizes are adequate for a tenant. But now you're at the point where you've checked all those things. You know what the costs are. You know what the property is. It's a good investment. You want to buy it. So now we're going to have to work with the agent. And remember what I said at the beginning. You're not the agent's customer. You don't pay them a penny. But you desperately need them to be on your side. So how do we do that? Now, I'm really sorry, estate agents, if you're listening to this, but I'm giving this stuff away. I think it's important. And hey, as an estate agent myself, I know that these are things that I would want a buyer to do and be like. So first of all, I just want to give you a bit of blunt advice, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. Don't act like the estate agent owes you anything or you're entitled to anything from the estate agent, because you're not, and they don't owe you anything. Actually, they work for the seller. So if you don't act like a good buyer and you don't make relevant offers and you don't go in accordance with the agent's requests, then they can advise their seller that they're not going to progress. They advise you not to progress with this buyer because they're not a good buyer. You need the agent on your side. So you need to treat them like a professional, because remember as well, I don't know why people think that agents are pieces of crap. All right, that could be the case in some instances, but generally speaking, agents are just good people trying to sell properties and rent properties. So remember that to the agent that you're buying through, you're probably just another investor. There are so many investors out there that want to buy investment properties. And if you're buying a really good investment property, the chances are there are other people that would buy that property other than you. So that's why I say don't act like the agent owes you anything. Don't be bolshy with them. Don't be demanding. Don't be entitled or act like you're better than them. Because actually, in this instance, on this subject, you're not. You want to buy a property, they're selling a property. So actually, they're the ones that are in the positions of power. Share your workings with the agent. Be open about what you're trying to achieve, but don't be greedy. And what do I mean by that? Look, if I'm buying a property to rent out, then I will share with the agent, this is the amount of work that I want to do. This is the profit margin I want to make. This is my budget for doing that work. This is the stamp duty. This is the mortgage cost. This is the legal cost. And this is the refurb cost. I'll just be open about that. So therefore, I want to have an area of contingency. So this is how I've calculated the offer. What do you think, Mr. or Mrs. Agent? Get their feedback, but don't be greedy. Don't say, right, so the house is on the market for 200,000. I'm going to spend 20 grand on it, and I've got 10 grand's worth of costs. So I'm going to spend 30 grand. So I want to buy this property for £80,000. If I was the agent selling that property, I'd tell you to F off. Just purely because it's an unrealistic offer. And I would then go back to my seller and I would say, I think you can get more for this property than 80,000. So I'm advising you not to accept this offer. It's up to the owner at the end of the day, but that's what I would do if I was an agent. So don't be greedy. Don't be an idiot, because you want the agent to want to work with you. Because if the agent doesn't want to work with you, they're not going to go to their customer and fight your corner. They're going to go to the customer and say, right, I've got this bloke. He's a bit rude. He's offered stupid amounts. He just won't be interested in you. And I'm sorry about that, but that's just the way life is. If you want people to work for you for free, they have to want to work with you for free. So be a good buyer. Be factual with the agent. Don't give them a load of emotional crap. Don't give them a load of bull. Be factual with them. Give them the evidence that you have found, but don't make that evidence out to be stuff that the agent has missed. Don't try and make yourself a one-up person. Don't try and win a battle of who's smarter and who knows property more. Don't do that. It doesn't matter if you do or do not know more about property than that agent. That doesn't matter. Remember the key thing here, you need that agent to work with you. But it's their job to then take your offer and present it to their customer. Now, you don't know what that customer's like. You don't know what the relationship is like between the agent and the customer. If the customer is particularly difficult to work with, that agent's not going to want to go there with crappy offers. It's a tough life. They have to present the offer, yes, but how do they present the offer? That's the key. The agent will also be the one that takes the criticism for your offer as well. So remember that. A couple of things to say, by the way, to agents if you want them to be on your side and work with you. Number one, straight away, you make your offer and say, right, I've got proof of funds ready for you and I've got ID ready for your anti-money laundering checks. Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, just a fantastic buyer who's ready to go and proactive. Now, by the way, proof of funds either needs to be cash in the bank or a decision in principle. Don't argue with the agent when they ask you for proof of funds. All they're doing is not wasting their time. If you think about it like this, right? If it, say, takes 10 viewings to sell a property, and out of those 10 people that viewed a property, 5 of them can't even get a mortgage anyway, then that is a lot of the agent's time. That's up to 5 hours of the agent's time. Unpaid. You don't pay them. That they're just giving for free. So my agency check for proof of funds because we work for the seller. Remember that. We work for the seller. So our job is to only show people round that are definitely in a position to proceed. So give them your proof of funds. Next thing to say, I'll make myself available anytime you are free. I cannot stand buyers that dictate terms to agents. I just don't like it. No, Mr. Buyer or Mrs. Buyer, these are the times that you can view the property. These are the times that are available. If you really want to see this property, those are the times that you will be able to go and see them. You as the buyer are not entitled to anything and the agent doesn't owe you anything. So I'm going after you buyers a little bit here, aren't I? But I'm just trying to help you get on with the agent and get that agent on your side. Now, if you are very flexible, then say to the agent, I'll work around you. I appreciate you giving me some of your time here, so I'll be available whenever you are. And be available. Whenever the agent says this is the time I can do, take it. And thank them for their time. Do you know what? Not enough people thank the agent for their time. And I just don't know why. I just don't get it. Anyway, lastly, here's a little tip. Tell the agent that you are happy to talk to their mortgage advisor and their solicitor. Now, that doesn't mean you have to use their mortgage advisor and solicitor, but take the call from both. Why? Number one, a mortgage broker is a mortgage broker, right? They all have access to pretty much the same mortgages and they'll all do pretty much the same thing, right? If you've got your own mortgage advisor, then cool. Use your own mortgage advisor, but don't cut off the option of using the agent's mortgage advisor, or at least speak to them. Because the agent, in some instances, is paid per appointment that they set up for the mortgage advisor. That means that they're going to be more incentivized to work with you and be on your side if they are getting paid for something else too. Makes sense? But also same with solicitor. You do have the freedom to decide whether you want to then work with that mortgage advisor or not, or if you want to work with that solicitor or not. But definitely tell the agent that you are open to the discussion with their advisor and their lawyer. And then take that call. Don't avoid that call, please. Because remember the point. We're trying to get them on our side. Anyway, right. So we've done before the viewing. You know that this is a good deal on paper. Now we've gone to the property. You've confirmed that this is a good deal. You've checked all those checks. And please, I've done that full checklist, which is a deep analysis on everything that you need to check at the property. So go and check that out. Go onto my Facebook page or it'll be on the podcast and have a look at that. Now, after the viewing, you want to make an offer. Act fast, offer quick. And here's a little insight. The agent is only interested in your offer. They don't care about your life story. They don't care about how desperate you are or not desperate you are, how many other properties you've seen. Yes, there are going to be things wrong with the property that you can point out, but the agent just wants your offer. So act fast, make your offer. Negotiate quickly. Don't leave it 2 days. If you offer 180,000, don't leave it 2 days to renegotiate. Get it accepted quickly, because that's what the agent wants, that's what the seller wants, and that's what you want. Instruct your solicitor as soon as the offer is accepted. Pay the money to the solicitor straight away. Order your searches, book your survey at the first available opportunity. Don't wait. Don't leave it in your email inbox. Don't leave it in your voicemail messages. Don't leave it in your text messages. Do it straight away. Why? 3 reasons. Number 1, because you want to. Because the longer you leave it, the more money it's costing you and the lower your yield becomes. Number 2, your estate agent wants you to. They only get paid when the job is done. So you have to move as quickly as you can to keep them on your side. And thirdly, the seller wants you to. If that seller starts getting nervous or cold feet about anything because you're taking too long, then you're more likely to lose that sale, especially if someone comes along and gazumps you. If you are working quickly and moving fast and doing everything you're supposed to be doing exactly when you're supposed to be doing it, you're less likely to get gazumped if you are a reliable buyer. The agent will fight your corner. The seller will fight your corner if you are a fast buyer. Now, so remember that. Give the agents updates. Sometimes you as the buyer will get updates from your lawyer and from your mortgage advisor and your mortgage lender before the agent does. Don't hate the agent if they don't proactively give you updates. Now they should. Your agent should give you updates, but you are not the customer. You're not paying for their time. And if they're taking extra time to just give you an update on where you are or where they are in the sale, that's their time they're giving to you for free. Respect that time, please. They are just the middleman. They don't control your legal work. They don't control your mortgage lender. They don't control your survey, your searches, or any of the process after the sale has been agreed. They are not in control of that part of the process. All they are is the conduit between your lawyer, your mortgage advisor, your mortgage lender, your surveyor, your councils. They're the conduit between that collects information as and when they can. But sometimes the lawyers don't give the agent the information quickly. Sometimes the mortgage lender doesn't do the same. So you have to give them a bit of leeway, give them a bit of flexibility and respect. They're trying their best to get the sale through for you because they don't get paid until the job's done. And remember, through all of this, you don't pay that agent a penny. So you should appreciate their time and be appreciative naturally. Don't force it. Don't pretend to be appreciative. You must appreciate their time. The more you appreciate their time, the more they'll want to work with you on the next property. They'll give you a ring and say, hey, got another property for you, Tom. Do you want it? I'll be like, hell yeah, thank you. That's awesome. Let's do it. So those are the things that you must do before the viewing, during the viewing, after the viewing, and things that you should do to get the agent on your side. And just to do a quick recap for you, very quick summary, because I've been told that people like it when I summarize at the end. Okay, cool. Before the viewing, calculate the true value. Use sold, completed property prices, actual evidence. Now look at the sale agreed against the number of properties on the market. Speak to the agent, find out what work they think is required, what the resale value is, calculate your bridging finance costs, your mortgage lending costs. So all of that can work out your true yield. During the viewing, check the boiler, the windows, the electrics, the wiring, check for damp, check the wallpaper, check the brickwork. And so yeah, check for water ingress. That's a really good thing to check for. Don't act like the agent owes you anything. You are just another investor. Share your workings, but don't be greedy. Make the agent want to work with you and be factual. Give them evidence. Show the evidence. It's not their job to work for you, but they will if you get them on their side. And then after the viewing, be fast. Do everything straight away. Pay for things straight away. Ask the agent what you can do to help them. Oh my God, I should have included that in the main part of the presentation. Ask the agent what you can do to help them. Brilliant question. Get agents on your side, win agents for life. So, those are the things that you must do before, during, and after a viewing. I hope that helps. Go and get yourself some properties, and hey, drop me a line. Let me know how you're getting on with your viewings. If you want some help, if you found a property that you want some advice on, give me a shout. I'm more than happy. It's my favourite bit. I love that bit. But look, that is it. And remember, all of these things go towards you developing and improving and educating as a property investor. And that will enable you to be the best version of yourself, because if you want to be the best version of yourself at one thing, you've got to be the best version of yourself at everything. And what does that mean? It means don't just study one thing. Change your life so that you can be better at that one thing. My name's Tom Soane, and this is the Anonymous Landlord.